Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at virtual worlds in education.
Okay.
And this all stems from the TEDx talk transcript that you sent over.
Yeah.
Really fascinating stuff. What really stood out to me was the speaker, Chris Smith. Not your typical presenter. He's a self-described digital nomad scavenger.
Mm.
And get this, he's presenting at the very first TEDx Bangkok at Room Rudy International School.
Wow.
But here's the real kicker. He's sharing the stage with his avatar.
Really?
Yeah, his avatar, Shambles, who, of course, resides in the virtual world Second Life.
So we're talking a physical presentation with a virtual component.
Exactly. That duality right off the bat gets you thinking about this idea of presence, something that's so crucial to the whole concept of virtual worlds.
Absolutely. It really sets the stage in a way that a traditional lecture format just couldn't capture.
Right. So before we go any further, let's do a quick level set for those who might not be as familiar with Second Life.
Sure.
It's not just some online game, is it?
No, not at all. It's much bigger than that. Think of it more as a massive, persistent 3D world.
Okay.
One that exists whether you're logged in or not.
So it's always there.
It is. It was launched back in 2002, and it has over 12 million registered users.
Wow, that's huge.
It is, and at any given moment, you'll find tens of thousands of people interacting in real time.
That's incredible.
It really is a society running parallel to our own, with its own unique rules, possibilities, and even economies.
It's like a whole other world out there.
In a way, it is.
And within this world, Chris and Shambles, they haven't just been passively exploring, they've actually been building something pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Tell us about International Schools Ireland.
So Chris and Shambles have created this virtual space specifically for educators. It's a 3-island archipelago within Second Life.
A whole archipelago.
An archipelago, yeah,
Okay.
complete with a 3D index filled with resources and tools designed for educators.
That's amazing. So they're not just attending virtual meetings, they're creating a whole virtual infrastructure for education.
Exactly. They're
Good.
really putting their belief in the educational potential of virtual worlds into action.
That's really cool. And speaking of meetings, they mentioned being active in several Second Life communities.
They do.
It seems like it's not just about building, it's about connecting with others who are already there.
Absolutely. The 3 weekly meetings that Chris highlights in the talk really give us a glimpse into the vibrant social fabric of Second Life
Okay.
and how it's being utilized for various purposes, not just education.
Right, right. So let's dive into these meetings. First up, there's ISTI, the International Society for Technology and Education.
Yeah, they have a huge presence in Second Life, which makes sense given their mission.
Right. ISTI is like what, the leading professional organization for ed tech, right?
It's one of the biggest, for sure.
So what are they actually doing within Second Life?
Well, they're holding meetings, both formal and informal, on a whole range of topics.
Wow.
Everything from virtual world applications in teaching to broader discussions about the future of education. They're also doing some really interesting things in terms of mentorship.
Mentorship.
Yeah, they've got this program specifically for new educators who are entering Second Life.
Oh, wow.
It's all about providing support and guidance in navigating this new landscape.
Mm.
Really speaks to that community aspect that Chris keeps emphasizing.
It's like professional development goes global and virtual.
Exactly.
They're no longer limited by geography.
You're not. And the other meetings that Chris attends just reinforce this sense of a diverse, interconnected community in Second Life.
Okay, so what are the other meetings?
Well, there's this one called Tools Jam.
Okay.
It's where educators and developers get together to talk about and even collaborate on building new tools.
Tools for what?
Tools for teaching and learning within Second Life.
What kinds of tools are we talking about here? Give us some examples.
Well, Chris mentioned being particularly drawn to tools for group management and ones that enhance the actual learning process. There are tools for communication, for building 3D objects, even tools that can simulate real-world scenarios.
Wow, so it's like a whole toolbox for virtual educators.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that a lot of these tools are open source.
Okay, hold on. Let's define that for a second. Open source means.
It means that the code behind the software is freely available for anyone to use, modify, and distribute.
So it's all about sharing and collaboration.
Absolutely. It creates this incredible culture of shared knowledge, which is so valuable in an educational context.
I can see that. So we've got ISTI, we've got Tools Jam. What's the third meeting Chris
The
mentioned?
third one is called Train for Success.
And what's the focus there?
It's really interesting. They're focusing on how businesses are using virtual worlds for things like training, collaboration, and even reducing their environmental impact.
So it's not just about education in the traditional sense. It's about professional development and even corporate sustainability.
Exactly. Think about it. Companies can use virtual worlds to simulate real-world scenarios, train employees from all over the world without the need for travel, and even build prototypes of new products.
It's like Second Life is becoming better life for a lot of industries.
In a way, it is.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's bring it back to the TEDx talk.
Okay.
Chris and Shambles actually demonstrated a couple of tools during their presentation.
Yeah,
A language translator, which seems like a must-have in this global community,
definitely.
and something called a holodeck,
Now that sounds intriguing.
right? I mean, you hear holodeck and you immediately think Star Trek.
Of course. Who doesn't love a little sci-fi?
So let's break these down. First, the language translator. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but how does it actually work?
It's actually pretty amazing. It allows avatars speaking different languages to communicate seamlessly in the chat window.
So it's like real-time translation.
It is. You type in your language, it gets translated into the other person's language, and vice versa.
Wow, that sounds incredibly useful, especially in a world as diverse as Second Life.
It is. It really breaks down those communication barriers and opens up all sorts of possibilities for global collaboration.
That's really cool. Okay, now, what about this holodeck? Does it live up to the Star Trek hype?
It might not be beaming us up to different planets just yet,
Darn.
but it's still pretty impressive. Basically, it's a tool that allows users to change their virtual environment instantly.
Really?
Yeah, just by pressing a button.
So like, poof, you're in a different place.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They gave the example of transforming a basic meeting space into a fully equipped conference room,
Oh, that's practical.
complete with tables, chairs, even a projector. But it can get a lot more creative than that.
Okay, give me an example. Could I, like, transport myself to the surface of Mars?
You could certainly create an environment that looks like the surface of Mars, yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. But what about more practical applications?
Chris mentioned an example of a holodeck simulation designed to replicate an insane asylum.
Wow. That's, different.
It was complete with padded cells and all sorts of unsettling details.
Intense. But I guess that speaks to the flexibility of the tool, right?
Exactly. It's all about creating immersive experiences that can be used for a variety of purposes.
From role-playing and simulations to, well, apparently experiencing what it might be like to be in an insane asylum.
And even things like therapy and artistic expression.
Okay, now that's where it gets really interesting. It's not just about replicating reality. It's about creating entirely new experiences.
Exactly. The holodeck really highlights the potential of virtual worlds to transcend the limitations of the physical world.
And open up all sorts of unique learning opportunities.
Precisely. And get this, the creator of the holodeck made it open source.
Really? That's incredible. So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about this spirit of collaboration and knowledge sharing.
It is, and it goes back to something Chris keeps emphasizing throughout the talk. The real power of virtual worlds isn't just in the tech, it's in the human connections.
Okay, I like that.
It's about the communities that emerge, the relationships that are built, the shared experiences that make these spaces so compelling.
That's what sets Second Life apart from a simple video game.
Absolutely. It's a world where people are forming real connections, building communities, exploring new ways of being.
And it's within this context that Chris's personal experiences in Second Life become even more fascinating.
Yeah, they do.
He talks about forming deep friendships with people from all over the world, people he would have never met otherwise.
It's amazing the connections you can make in these virtual spaces.
Right. And he even hints at his ultimate ambition in Second Life.
Which is?
Well, let's just say it's pretty mind-blowing. But we'll save that juicy tidbit for later.
Okay, you've got me hooked.
But first, let's delve into some of the specific educational applications that Chris highlights in the talk.
Sounds good.
He goes beyond just using virtual worlds for virtual field trips. He talks about role-playing, arts and media, even 3D data visualization.
Yeah, he's not just talking about the what of virtual worlds, he's getting into the how.
The practical application.
Exactly. How can we actually use these spaces to enhance learning, foster creativity, create truly transformative experiences?
And that's what we'll unpack in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it. Okay, so picking up where we left off, let's dive into those educational applications Chris talks about.
Okay.
He starts with role-playing, but it goes way beyond, just dressing up like a historical figure or something.
Yeah, he gave a really powerful example that stuck with me.
What was that?
A simulation where you can experience what it's like to navigate the world in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
You're not just observing, You're actually inhabiting a different perspective.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
It really drives home the point about embodiment in virtual worlds.
Right. You're not just a detached observer. You're actually experiencing the world through someone else's eyes.
Exactly. Imagine the impact this could have on fields like healthcare or social work, where empathy is so crucial.
Absolutely. It takes walking a mile in someone else's shoes to a whole new level.
It really does. And speaking of experiencing things from a different perspective, Chris also talks about the potential for arts and media.
Oh, yeah. He had this really cool vision of being able to step inside a painting,
Like literally.
literally experience it as a 3D environment.
Whoa! So I could stroll through Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Exactly. Or explore the depths of Picasso's Guernica.
Art history becomes a whole different ballgame.
It does. It's no longer just a textbook chapter, it's a lived experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what about language learning? I can see how virtual worlds could be incredibly beneficial there too.
Oh, absolutely. Chris described these immersive language learning environments where you could interact with native speakers in realistic settings.
So instead of just memorizing vocabulary, I could order food at a virtual Italian cafe.
Exactly. Or ask for directions in a bustling marketplace in Tokyo.
It's learning by doing, but on a global scale.
And with a level of cultural immersion that's hard to replicate in a traditional classroom.
Right. It's pretty incredible. And then there's the example he gave of 3D data visualization.
Oh, yeah, he seemed really excited about that one.
Yeah, me too. He talked about a 3D graph that visualized the S&P 500 in real time.
That's a cool way to make something like the stock market come alive.
It is. It's not just numbers on a screen anymore. It's something you can interact with and explore.
Students could actually witness the fluctuations of the market, see the impact of economic events.
It makes learning so much more relevant and engaging.
It does. It connects those abstract concepts to real-world events in a really compelling way.
And of course, we can't forget about simulations.
Oh, yeah, those are perfect for virtual worlds.
Chris shared a pretty unforgettable example.
What was that?
A university professor and his students created a giant interactive model of the male reproductive organs.
Okay, that's definitely one way to make anatomy class memorable.
It is. But beyond the initial shock value, it really highlights the potential for student-led creation within these virtual spaces.
Totally. They weren't just passively learning about anatomy, they were actively building something.
Collaborating with their peers, engaging with the subject matter on a much deeper level.
That's where virtual worlds really shine, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not just about consuming information, it's about creating, experimenting, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. And Chris is careful to point out that these applications aren't limited to Second Life.
Right, he mentions that there are hundreds of other virtual worlds out there.
Each with its own unique features and potential applications for education.
So it's not about finding the one perfect virtual world. It's about understanding the diverse landscape and choosing the right tool for the job.
And recognizing that this is still a relatively new frontier.
We're just scratching the surface of what's possible.
Exactly. And as we continue to explore this new frontier, it's really important to keep in mind that human element.
Right, it's not just about the technology.
It's about the connections we forge, the communities we build, the shared experiences we create.
It's a good reminder that for all the talk about technology, it's still the human connections that matter most.
It is, and that brings us back to Chris's personal experiences in Second Life.
His stories about forming genuine friendships with people from all over the world?
Yeah, he talked about attending virtual weddings, celebrating birthdays, even having those tough conversations about life's challenges.
All within the context of Second Life.
It's amazing to think about.
It really challenges our assumptions about what constitutes a real relationship.
It does. And it speaks to the power of virtual worlds to create this sense of belonging, especially for people who might feel isolated or marginalized in their offline lives.
That's a really important point. Virtual worlds can provide a sense of community and support that might be lacking in someone's real life.
Exactly. And for educators, this opens up a whole new world of possibilities for creating inclusive learning environments.
Where everyone feels seen and heard.
Yes. And where differences are celebrated and collaboration is encouraged.
It's about fostering a sense of shared humanity, regardless of physical location, background, or ability.
And recognizing that those lines between the virtual and the real are becoming increasingly blurred.
Which brings us to Chris's ultimate ambition in Second Life.
The mind-blowing part you teased earlier.
It is mind-blowing. He talked about the possibility of uploading his consciousness into a virtual world when he dies.
Wow.
That's heavy stuff.
It is. It really forces us to confront some big questions about the nature of consciousness, the limits of technology, what it means to truly live in a virtual world.
It's almost like a digital afterlife.
Right. And while that particular scenario might still be in the realm of science fiction, the fact that we're even having these conversations.
It says a lot about the impact these technologies are having on our understanding of reality.
Identity, the very nature of human experience.
Exactly. We might not be uploading our brains anytime soon,
Hopefully not.
but the fact that we're even considering it speaks volumes about the transformative power of these technologies. It's pushing us to reconsider our assumptions about what's possible, to imagine a future where those boundaries between the physical and the virtual continue to dissolve.
It's both exciting and a little unsettling, isn't it?
It is. But one thing's for sure, virtual worlds are here to stay.
And their impact on education is only just beginning.
And that's where we'll leave you to ponder.
Mm.
What role do you envision yourself playing in this brave new world of virtual learning?
What possibilities excite you, and what challenges do you foresee?
Okay, so we've traveled through Second Life with Chris and Shambles,
Mm.
explored their educational projects, even taken a virtual roller coaster ride through human anatomy.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has. But it's important to remember that Second Life is just one of many virtual worlds out there.
Right. Chris mentioned hundreds, maybe even thousands.
So what does all this mean for us? What are the big takeaways from our deep dive into virtual worlds and education?
It's not just about a specific platform like Second Life. It's about recognizing the potential of virtual worlds in general to revolutionize how we learn, how we collaborate, how we even perceive reality.
Give me the big why here.
Mm.
What makes these virtual worlds so powerful?
Well, think about it. They offer this level of immersion and interactivity that you just can't get in a traditional classroom.
Right, like stepping into a historical simulation.
Exactly. You're not just reading about ancient Rome. You're walking its streets, interacting with its people, experiencing the culture firsthand.
It's like those amazing field trips we all had as kids.
But amplified by technology.
And you can go anywhere, anytime.
Exactly. And it's not just about the experience itself, it's about the connections these worlds foster.
The communities.
Yeah, we're seeing global communities of learners, educators, creators, all coming together to collaborate and share knowledge.
It's like the ancient Greek agora, those marketplaces of ideas.
I like that analogy. And it really highlights something Chris emphasized throughout the talk, that human element.
Right, it's not all about the fancy tech.
It's about the relationships we build, the communities. We form the shared experiences that make these virtual worlds come alive.
It's those human connections that make these spaces more than just digital playgrounds.
Absolutely. They become platforms for genuine interaction, for building empathy, for fostering a sense of shared humanity.
And that's what makes the educational applications so exciting.
Right.
We can use these virtual worlds to create truly inclusive learning environments,
Where everyone feels welcome and valued.
where differences are celebrated and collaboration is encouraged,
It's about empowering learners to become active creators.
not just passive consumers of information.
Exactly. We can give them the tools to explore, experiment, build their own understanding of the world.
And it's important to remember this is still a relatively new field,
A young field.
full of uncharted territory,
We're just starting to grasp the possibility.
and grapple with the challenges.
Which brings us back to that question Chris posed in his talk.
The big one.
What role do you envision yourself playing in this brave new world of virtual learning?
Are you excited by the possibilities?
Do you have concerns?
There's a lot to think about here.
How do we make sure these virtual spaces are equitable and accessible to all learners?
How do we balance the incredible potential with the potential risks?
How do we guide students to become responsible, ethical citizens of these digital worlds?
Tough questions, but important ones.
They are.
And while we might not have all the answers just yet, one thing is clear. Virtual worlds are changing the way we learn, the way we connect, the way we experience the world around us.
They are. And as we navigate this uncharted territory, it's important to remember that we're not just shaping the future of technology.
We're shaping the future of human connection,
Creativity.
understanding.
It's a pretty big responsibility.
It is, but it's also an incredible opportunity.
It is. So as you continue to explore these virtual worlds,
Keep asking those tough questions, keep pushing those boundaries, keep that sense of wonder alive.
who knows what amazing discoveries await us in these digital realms?
The journey is just beginning.